Hey, how's it going? My name's Mason, and today I'm going to be showing you how I go about mixing drums. Let's do it. Alright, so this is going to be a quick rundown of what I did to get my drum sound from my last video, which you should definitely check out if you haven't. So first I'll show you the raw drum tones, and then I'll turn on all the processing so you can hear what we'll end up with. All right, so that was without any processing on it. This is with the processing. Alright, so when mixing drums, I usually like to start with the kick drum. I use the Easy Drummer Modern Metal Pack for the bass kit, and then layered it with other samples just to reinforce it a little bit. So you can see the reinforcement kick I have here is the dead kick. I think this is like a Brian Hood sample or something. So we'll start with this second kick sample here. I think all I've done on this is just a small EQ curve. So cut a little bit of low end sub frequencies, added a bit of low end again, and then just boosted it about 6K, just a little bit more attack. So a very subtle change there. Then I'll just bust both kicks together and process them as one. So I'll turn off all these plugins and I'll just show you what I've gone and done. All right, so I pretty much always start with an EQ on this. So using the Infinity EQ, a bit of a low cut again, 32 Hertz, just to cut a little bit of low end. Pretty drastic cut, 7 dB, almost 8 dB at 103 Hertz. Kind of hear what this is doing. And then cutting also a little bit of the higher mid-range. So the second plugin I've got on here is the virtual mix rack, just with the FG stress on there. 6:1 ratio, slow attack, fast release. Pretty basic settings, really. That's what it sounds like with it. Without it. Obviously boosting the volume quite a bit. Next, I've just got the Pultec Waves plugin. Boosting 60 Hertz, and a bit of high end at about 10K. I've just put the C4 in there just to tame the low end a little bit. Once again, just a very subtle change there. And then just clipping at the end with JST clip. Got it on 2 times. And then just trimming to bring the volume back down a little bit. So moving on to the snare now. I've got 3 layered samples. I've got the Easy Drummer, which is just the bass kit. I've got another snare sample, which is by Alex Rudinger, I believe. Just adding a different quality to the snare there. And then I've just got a one shot, which is just kind of adding more consistency to the line. All right, so I've got a basic little EQ on this, I believe. Yep, just cutting a little bit. So I'll just leave that on. You can barely notice it, but that's all right. All right, so turn this on. I'll just bypass all the plugins except for the EQ. All right, so I got a pretty drastic EQ, you can see. So that's without, then adding. So pretty large high pass filter there, 85 Hertz, and then just boosting a little bit of the low end punch of the snare at 211 Hertz. And then I've just kind of gone through and found frequencies that I didn't really like and just cut them out. Yeah, just taking out some crackle as well. Sometimes this snare gets a little bit crackly. Right, so next plugin is the virtual mix rack. Just adding a little bit more EQ, and then just the so I'll just turn off these two so you just hear the EQ. And turn that off. So that's just cutting a bit more mid-range that I don't really like. It's a bit woofy with that in there. And then compressor, again 6-to-1, slow attack, fast release. So that's where it really starts to bring out the character of the snare. I don't actually think this EQ is doing anything. No, it's not. So we'll move on to the Pultec again. This is just boosting high end, about 8K. So then I've just got the JST Transifier, which is just a transient designer. Just kind of boosting the attack on almost all of the bands there. It really makes the snare a lot punchier. Then, because it's a little bit too punchy, I don't want it to be so harsh. I got the virtual tape machine on there. It's just kind of cutting off that transient a little bit. And then just JST clip at the end. Again, 2 times, cranking it, and then trimming it off again for the volume. So I'll play the kick and the snare together. So it's sounding pretty good so far. All right, so we'll move on to the toms now. I'll unsolo those. So it's a bit annoying. Easy Drummer kind of sums the toms together. So I start with the virtual mix rack. I usually like to gate the toms. So you can tell it kind of tames the low end a little bit, which is great. And then just the Fab Filter Satin. I'm just saturating the high end there a little bit. So I don't believe the low end is doing anything. It's just the high end here. I've just boosted on warm tape, and then took the volume down a little bit. So next plugin, again, virtual mix rack, cutting some mid-range, some of that basketball sound. Turn the compressor off. That's what it sounds without the EQ. Just reducing that mid-range, making it sound a lot rounder. And then we've got the compressor again. It's got a high pass on it. 6-to-1 again. Slow attack, fast release. About 6 dB of gain reduction on the hardest hits. Then I got tape again. It's not really doing that much. Just kind of saturating a little bit more of that transient. And then I've just got 2 EQs on here, both doing minimal things. So we've got a bit of a cut at around 300 Hertz and then at around 6K as well in that one. And then again, 30 Hertz high pass there. Bit of a low mid cut, tiny cut there. See what it sounds like. Yeah, it's just kind of focusing the sound a little bit more. Another C4 in there. Again, to tame the low end. Soothe. Just taming the harshness of it. Then we've got JST clip again, 2 times. Got a trim on there, bring the volume back down. So that's the finished tom sound. All right, so moving on, we've got the cymbals. Just find a good part to highlight there. Start with a little bit of an EQ. Literally just a high pass there, 631 Hertz. Nothing too difficult there. So we got the Pultec boosting a lot of high end there, about 8K. Do with that. And without. It's adding a lot of sparkle to the cymbals there. And then just soothe, taming that high end so we don't get too much. So to me, that's all you really need to do to cymbals. They don't need a lot of work. And then we've got the overheads, which is what it sounds like without any plugins on it. So I think this is pretty much the same processing. It's just high pass 631, 8K, the Pultec there, and then just soothe again. I clearly didn't put much thought into this. That's what they sound like together. Sounds good to me. All right, so we've got the ambience, which is just the room for the Easy Drummer kit. I've got an EQ on here with just a high pass, about 40 Hertz. Can't really notice much of a difference. The big difference comes with the satin. All right, so with this, I'm just saturating different frequencies here, different levels. Without. And just adding it. So it's all on the warm tape setting for every single band. Just kind of saturate it to different degrees. So this one's at about 50%. That's about 40%. So I got a lot of the lower bands there. Just a little bit less saturation, just saturating the higher bands a bit more. And then just mixing it in to taste with the volume knobs here. I believe with the distortion processing here, I've done pretty much exactly the same. So I just copied over the setting. So with the reverbs here, I've just put basically the same processing as on the distortion and ambience. I've changed the EQ a little bit, just notched out some frequencies that I didn't like in those reverbs. Added Saturn in again, just one less band, I believe, and just kind of added different levels of saturation again. And then just the Kramer Pi stereo compressor. Just on the limiter mode, actually. And then I believe I copied this exact same settings. So you can pretty much just copy that. I mean, obviously it's going to depend what samples you're using. So this is what the reverbs and distortions sound like. So those all have just been mixed together to kind of get the ambient sound that I want for the kit. So if I show you what the whole kit sounds like without any of those ambient mics. So it's a great drum sound, it's just very dry. So you'll see just by adding in all of these ambient mics, reverbs, really opens the kit up, makes it sit in the mix a lot better. Alright, so then I just bus all of the shells, so the kick, the snare, and the toms to this shells bus, and just have one compressor on there. Slow attack again, kind of hitting about 5 to 7 dB of gain reduction on this. Extremely high ratio, 20:1. Alright, so to finish off the drum sound, I've just got 3 reverb sends here. We'll start with the kick one, obviously. So I've just sent that in there. That's just the raw kick sound. I've just got the Waves IRL reverb on there. Just the whole sound. I haven't done any form of EQ on it or anything like that. Just blended it in to taste, really. Moving on, we've got the snare reverb. We have a simple plate reverb right there. It's a bit rattier. And then just kind of nuked it with the FG Stress. So moving on to the tom one. We've just got Verb Suite, just with the room sound on. And then just another FG, just boosting the volume there a little bit, boosting the attack. And then lastly, to finish off the drum sound, we've just got some bus processing on the whole lot. So I just use the SSL comp. So with the SSL comp, it's got a 10 millisecond attack time, release on auto, just barely hitting the gain reduction there. Got the decapitator on there, because who doesn't love decapitator? Just blended in the mix there. Took some low end out of the distortion. That's what it sounds like if I crank it. Blend it. And then we just finish it off with JST clip. A little bit of extra headroom. So that's my finished drum sound. That's what we started with. And then bam. And then I might as well just play it in context with the rest of the instruments. Alright, so that's how I go about getting my drum sound. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.